The Five of Cups in Joe Bandel's Oak Tarot of Love and Romance presents a scene that feels like the exact moment the floor falls out from under a relationship, yet it anchors that chaos with the image of a massive, unmoving oak tree. It's a striking visual contrast. 5 glowing cups spilled on the ground, a lover literally falling at his partner's feet, and a victorious figure standing nearby while deep crimsons and shadowed blues dominate the frame. This isn't just about sadness. It's about what Bandel calls a painful awakening and the raw vulnerability that comes when the cracks in a romance finally become impossible to ignore.
It captures that specific kind of shock where the fantasy you've been living in suddenly shatters. In the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the Five of Cups is often shown as a solitary figure in a black cloak mourning over spilled wine, but Bandel's version makes it relational. You see the fallout in real time. The young woman's face, with her eyes wide in distress, isn't just reacting to a loss, she's reacting to the reality of her partner. The falling lover and the victorious figure suggest a power dynamic that has finally reached a breaking point, where one person feels they've won the argument or the control, but the relationship itself is the one losing blood.
That idea of a victorious figure in a card about grief is so unsettling. It highlights that in a crisis, someone often tries to claim the moral high ground or exert dominance, which only deepens the wound. Bandel describes this as the moment the relationship reveals its cracks, leaving one partner feeling trapped while the other is desperate to hold on. It forces a question that most of us try to avoid. At what point does our effort to save a connection actually become a way of suffocating it? The emotional reality here is raw because there's nowhere left to hide behind pleasantries.
And that raw reality hits differently depending on which side of the experience you're on. Bandel is very specific about the gendered dimensions of this card. For men, he suggests the Five of Cups often manifests as an intense fear of losing the connection entirely, which triggers a deep, sometimes terrifying vulnerability. Research, like the studies conducted at Binghamton University, actually backs this up, showing that while women might feel more acute emotional pain initially, men often struggle longer with the sink-in effect of a breakup because they tend to have fewer emotional outlets outside of their partner.
It's as if the man in this card is the one falling because his entire emotional infrastructure was built on that one person. If that connection strains, he doesn't just feel sad, he feels like he's losing his grip on his own stability. But then look at the female experience Bandel outlines. He describes it more as feeling trapped or overwhelmed. Instead of the fear of loss, it's the weight of the relationship's difficult side becoming too heavy to carry. It's a claustrophobic feeling, the realization that the romance has become a storm you're drowning in.
Exactly. While one is falling and trying to grab hold, the other is standing there shocked by the weight of it all. It's a classic distancer-pursuer dynamic pushed to its absolute limit. Psychologically, this is what happens when emotional love, which Bandel associates specifically with the Suit of Cups, is treated as an infinite resource rather than something that needs careful management. When those 5 cups spill, it represents the depletion of that resource. You've poured everything out, and now you're looking at the empty ground, wondering if anything is left.
But that's where the oak tree comes in. In the background of all this crimson and shadowed blue, there is this sturdy oak. In Celtic and Norse mythology, the oak is the ultimate symbol of endurance and inner strength. It's the sacred tree of Thor, the god of thunder, precisely because it can survive the most violent storms. By placing it there, Bandel is saying that the emotional storm is real, but it isn't the whole story. There is a foundation of stability underneath the grief, even if you can't feel your feet touching it yet.
The oak represents what he calls organic Gnosticism, this idea that there is a grounded, enduring reality that remains when the superficial layers of a relationship fall away. It's the resilience of the self. The spilled cups are the past, the mistakes, the failed expectations, but the tree is the present. It suggests that even in a painful awakening, the capacity to endure is built into us. It's the difference between a relationship that is a brittle twig and one that has deep roots. Sometimes the storm is necessary to strip away the dead wood so the tree can actually grow.
I wonder if the awakening part of the card is actually the most important word. We usually think of awakening as something peaceful, like morning light, but here it's a shock. It's the shock of raw emotional reality. It's the moment you realize your partner isn't who you thought they were, or you aren't who you thought you were in this relationship. That kind of honesty is brutal. It's the crimson in the card. It's visceral. But Bandel also includes those faint, hopeful golds. It's a hint that the beginning of honest growth only happens after the spilled cups are acknowledged.
That acknowledgement is the hardest part. In traditional tarot, the Five of Cups is often a reminder to look at the two cups still standing behind the figure. Bandel's version feels more like a call to look at the tree. Don't just look at the two cups you managed to save. Look at the strength you've developed by surviving the loss of the other three. It's a shift from what do I have left to who have I become. For the man feeling that raw vulnerability, the tree is a reminder that his strength doesn't have to be a mask. It can be a root system. He can be vulnerable and still be standing.
And for the woman feeling trapped, the oak is a symbol of her own inner sovereignty. She doesn't have to be defined by the person falling at her feet or the victorious figure trying to control the narrative. She can find her own groundedness in the middle of the storm. It's a very empowering take on a card that is usually just seen as a bad draw. Bandel is inviting us to see that the crisis is the gateway to authenticity. You can't have a soulmate cycle, as he calls it, without these moments where the ego's version of love gets wrecked.
It forces a move away from what he describes as mental love, the strategies and expectations we have, and toward an organic connection. The shadow blues in the card represent that period of mourning where you have to sit with the disappointment. You can't rush the oak tree's growth, and you can't rush the healing of the Five of Cups. You have to let the current flow as it will, which is a phrase Bandel uses often. If you try to force the cups back upright, you're just creating a new illusion. The growth comes from standing in the field, looking at the mess, and realizing you're still there.
It's interesting how this card functions as a midpoint. In the suit of cups, the 5 is the crisis that tests whether the love described in the 2 and 3 can actually survive the real world. It's easy to be in love when the cups are full and everyone is dancing. It's much harder when the glowing cups are on the ground and someone is crying. But the 5 of Cups says this is where the relationship actually starts to mean something. The cracks aren't just where the relationship is breaking, they are, as Leonard Cohen famously put it, where the light gets in.
That's exactly it. The faint, hopeful golds Bandel mentions are the light in those cracks. The victories and the falls are temporary, but the growth that comes from being that vulnerable is permanent. It's about building a foundation that doesn't rely on everything going perfectly. When you see this card, it's not a death sentence for the relationship, but it is a death sentence for the way you were relating. It's an invitation to stop fighting for control and start standing like the oak, deeply rooted in your own truth, even when the wind is howling.
It really changes the perspective on relationship failures. If we see them as 5 of Cups moments, they aren't just endings, they are clearings. The spilled cups are the release of what wasn't working, even if it hurts to let go. And the presence of the oak tree reminds us that we are much more resilient than our emotions lead us to believe in the heat of a crisis. We have the capacity to endure, to integrate the pain, and to eventually see those golds become the dominant color again.
It's about finding that internal coherence, being energetically self-sufficient so you aren't just a falling lover or a trapped partner. When both people can anchor themselves like that oak tree, the relationship stops being a storm they're trying to survive and starts being a grove where they can both grow. The 5 of Cups is the bridge from the fantasy of love to the reality of it, and while that bridge is often built on grief, it's the only one that actually leads somewhere meaningful.
It's a powerful reminder that our most difficult emotional awakenings are often the very things that ground us for the long haul. If this exploration of the 5 of Cups and the resilience of the oak tree resonated with you, consider sharing this episode with a friend who might be navigating their own emotional storm right now.